When you look past the cheery façade of Disney movies, you always find tragedy and emotionally scarring moments. This, however, isn't limited to their media. Disney has had some rather dark moments revolving around disturbing deaths in real life. So, here's my top 10 gruesome real-life Disney deaths. Let's start off the list with old Walt Disney himself. Walt was a very talented man that brought joy to our hearts as children and as adults. But during his era, it was normal to smoke and drink on an almost constant basis. There was no surprise when he was diagnosed with lung cancer. At the age of 65, Disney had lost his ability to speak and communicated entirely by writing notes down on a pad of paper. His last note before his death only had 2 words on it. A name. Kurt Russell? No one knows what the note meant or what he was trying to say, but even the actor, who had just started working with Disney Studios, had no idea what Walt wanted from him. On another note, Disney wasn't cryogenically frozen. His body was actually cremated after his death. So no, there is no Walt Disney head hidden somewhere under the park. Deborah Stone was a young hostess for the popular America Sings attraction in Disneyland. Deborah had taken this job to help pay for her college tuition at Iowa State University. However, sadly, Deborah was crushed to death while ushering a new group of people onto the ride. She stood too close to the moving stage wall and was crushed between the stationary parts and the moving wall. Chills ran through everyone's spines as her screams are actually heard by guests, but by the time the moving wall was stopped, she was already dead. The ride was closed for 2 days and new safety precautions were put in place. Many rides in Disneyland have to be routinely maintained. This means cleaned, parts replaced, among other things. One of the repairmen who was contracted to clean one of the boats on the It's a Small World ride, the ride was somehow turned on during its maintenance and dragged the man underneath the boat. The 53-year-old suffered horrible injuries, and despite being airlifted to the nearest hospital, he died en route. Many people who have ever been to Disneyland parks claim it to be the happiest place on earth. However, in 2010, Disneyland Paris took a very hard blow after not 1, but 2 employees committed suicide. This was due to a change in management and added work being piled on top of the employees' already stressful workload. One man, a chef, etched a message onto his wall before hanging himself. "I don't want to go back to Mickey's house." Only the message was written in French. The other man threw himself in front of a moving train. A third suicide attempt was made when a man covered himself in gasoline and had to be restrained from setting himself on fire. After catching wind of the second suicide, the management found that the employees were referring to the workplace as Mauswitz, spoofing the concentration camp Auschwitz during World War II. Disneyland's first death would take place in 1964 on a ride known as Matterhorn. This bobsled ride took the life of a 15-year-old kid when he tried to stand up near the ride's top peak. Without knowing it, the kid's friend had unbuckled his seatbelt. Losing his balance, he fell to the concrete platform far below the ride. This caused a fractured skull, multiple broken ribs, and nearly all of his internal organs ruptured. And while he miraculously survived the fall, his brain began to swell and hemorrhage after the employees rushed him to the nearest hospital. He never regained consciousness and died 3 days later. Located in 3 different parks, the Big Thunder Railroad is a roller coaster themed off a runaway train. It is one of the most dangerous rides Disney has kept open. In late 2003, one of the train cars derailed and struck the top of a tunnel. It then fell and landed on top of another car. 1 man died due to the internal bleeding by the blunt force trauma. 10 other riders were severely injured. Roger Rabbit's cartoon Spin Ride caused the death of a 4-year-old. The boy fell beneath one of the taxicabs. Oddly enough, it was Disney's policy to alert Disneyland security before paramedics. It took them 10 minutes to free the child, and once they had, he no longer had a pulse. Despite being resuscitated, he never actually woke up. Only a few short days after the incident, Disney's policy changed their regulations on whom to call first, claiming it had nothing to do with the incident at all. It was a coincidence, they swear. Disney did pay for all the medical expenses and settled the lawsuit if the parents would claim in court that Disney was not at fault. It was the afternoon parade at Disney's Frontierland when an employee dressed as Pluto the dog tripped in front of a Beauty and the Beast float. He was unable to move away from the float in time before it struck him down and crushed him. It took a forklift truck to move the float from over the body of the man. Disney was fined $6,500 for violating employee safety. Everywhere, there are signs posted on the fences of any theme park. And it is not just so people can't sneak in, it's actually for your safety. In 1966, a 19-year-old boy scaled the 16-foot fence that surrounded the theme park. He didn't account for the train that was coming headfirst for him. The security guard on duty had yelled for him to jump down and clear the way for the train. Instead, the teenager lay down onto the fiberglass canopy beneath the track. It wasn't enough. The train scraped him as it passed by and dragged his body 40 feet along the track. His body was torn into small pieces. The driver of the train never saw the kid and only found out when his train was forced to stop. Have you ever noticed in almost any Disney movie, the main protagonist's parents, usually the mother, will always come to some sort of tragic end? This was apparently something that was caused because of Walt Disney's own mother. Walt had a house made for his parents after his epic success with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Sadly, the furnace was installed incorrectly and a gas leak killed his mother. She died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Her death struck Walt hard and expressed grief in many of his movies thereafter. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this rather dark list, and if you did, leave a like. Also, if you want more top 10 goodness, click here for my top 10 creepy abandoned amusement parks. And if you want to see more in the future, subscribe to be notified when the next ones are out. I put these out every week.